Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 just came out, and here are my thoughts. Let's start with the pros. Point one, decent continuation of the story, how it ties in from the previous chapters to here, and how you start seeing it in this chapter. Not too bad, but not outstandingly great in Chapter 3. In my opinion, Chapter 3 was better. Point number two, just seeing new characters, old characters again as well. Kissy, Missy surviving, seeing Huggy Wuggy faintly at the end, and seeing the introduction of Doey and seeing the critters in the safe haven not being corrupted yet by the influence of Playtime Co. Um, Point number three, exploring the areas, just seeing the underground labs, the mines, and seeing the prisons, and, point number four, just knowing more about the lore just by hearing the tapes and seeing the letters that you could read. But in my opinion, that's all I think about when I'm trying to think of the pros for this chapter. Here are the cons, and the thing is, there's a lot of cons in this chapter, and this makes chapter 4 really disappointing in my opinion. Point number one, the villains were just done absolutely dirty. You know, it's a lot to say. The nightmare critters, they just feel like cardboard cutouts of the smiling critters from chapter 3. Their sections just feel short, lackluster, not too much in depth with them. You know what I mean? It just feels like repetition from chapter 3 when you see Dog Days in in that playhouse area. Yarnaby, you only see him like twice. Like, really? He's the main villain, and well, one of the main villains. It's more of a secondary villain, but you only encounter him twice, and his fighting section is just you doing puzzles, and sometimes he's glitched, staying still while you're doing those puzzles, so it kind of ruins the immersion and all that stuff. Not only that, it just doesn't feels kind of boring for a boss fight in my opinion. And his chase scene is just so short, and how he dies just feels so quick, and I don't know, it just feels like missed potential in my opinion. Pianosaurus, really? Come on. Died like 2 seconds, had a trailer for him. Mob. Come on, Mob. Yeah, we have a trailer for him, and he dies like 2 seconds to Doey. Wasted potential for a good villain in this chapter. Just It's just kind of tragic for Pianosaurus. Rip. And one that irks me a lot, Harley Sawyer, the main villain of chapter 4. We heavily seen in the trailers, but in my opinion, throughout the whole chapter, he's just like a little fly talking to you in your ear. You know, you rarely interact with him. You don't really see much of him, and then when you do see him like near the end, his boss fight's kind of eh. You know what I mean? You're just running around with batteries in the dark while computers with arms and legs are chasing you. Just didn't feel it didn't satisfy me. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel like a great boss fight. Not only that, but his death and how you just pull off a plug and kill him like that felt underwhelming. And not only that, just like the rest of the villains, he feels highly underutilized. You just don't see him often, and that's my second point. You see a lack of screen time for these characters, more particularly the villains, and so that just kind of kills me in my opinion. Point number three of the cons, lack of interesting gameplay. I was hoping to see more interesting things, but everything just felt like it was, it just felt like chapter 3 again. Of course, in the end, you get God's hand, the Omni hand, but to me, it was just like a red hand with the ability to open any doors in the facility. So I was expecting more, you know what I mean? And, that's pretty much all I have to say. You know what I mean? I really wished this chapter would have brought more, and the trailers did look like it brought more, but in the end, it felt worse in chapter 3. In fact, I find chapter 3 way better than chapter 4, although I wish chapter 3 had catnap more, in my opinion. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What do you think?